The orbiting academy gleamed against the blackness of space, a massive structure where the galaxy's best cadets gathered to prove themselves and claim glory among their species. Humans were newcomers here and immediately noticed. The moment they arrived, alien cadets turned their noses up at them, whispering and laughing at their presence, saying the human cadets were slow, weak, and completely overrated. The human protagonist walked through the hallways unnoticed by most, yet observed by all. His eyes were calm and calculating. His posture relaxed yet filled with readiness, as if he carried a hidden power that no one could see. The aliens tried to intimidate them with their complex gadgets and glowing armor, but the humans moved as if they were in tune with the rhythm of the universe. They did not stumble over the shiny floors or the strange gravity fields. They did not flinch when an alien threw a training staff to test their reflexes. Instead, the human simply tilted his head, slightly caught the staff mid-air, and returned it with a precise flick of his wrist. The aliens froze, whispering among themselves, and one of the larger cadets stepped forward, laughing in a deep voice, saying, "You humans are nothing more than insects, thinking you can survive in the trials ahead." The human looked at him and smiled faintly. Not a mocking smile, not a fearful smile, but a calm smile that carried a quiet confidence. The alien laughed again and called for the first trial, announcing that every cadet would be tested on agility, combat, and reflexes. The human nodded and walked toward the arena, ignoring the murmurs and laughter behind him. His steps were measured and smooth as he passed other cadets who tried to provoke him with insults and taunts. They waved their weapons, showing off their strength and skill, expecting the human to falter or react with panic. But he did nothing. He felt nothing. He simply observed the environment, analyzing every detail from the weight of the weapons to the spacing of the training platforms. He felt the air shift and the hum of the machinery around him. He could sense the timing of moving obstacles before they even started to move. The alien instructors watched with mild amusement, thinking the human would fail miserably. They underestimated him, as they always underestimated humans until now. The arena doors opened, and the human stepped inside, blindfolded. The aliens gasped and whispered, "How can someone fight blindfolded?" The human took a deep breath, closing his eyes further, feeling the energy of the space around him. The first alien cadet lunged with a laser staff, swinging it in a complex pattern, expecting to overwhelm the human. The human did not panic. Instead, he moved with fluid motion, dodging every strike with ease. His steps were silent and precise. His hands moved as if guided by some unseen force. The aliens watching could not believe what they were seeing. Every strike that should have hit him glanced off or missed entirely. He used the walls for leverage and momentum, turning the environment into his advantage. Not a single movement was wasted. Not a single misstep occurred. The other cadets tried to coordinate to trap him, but each plan failed. The human seemed to anticipate every move without seeing a thing. His calm demeanor and flawless execution sent a ripple of shock across the audience. The instructors exchanged nervous glances, never having witnessed anything like this. The mockery that greeted the humans upon arrival began to fade, replaced by disbelief and a creeping fear that maybe they had underestimated their new peers. The first trial ended with the human standing in the center of the arena, unharmed and completely composed. The aliens who had laughed before now stepped back cautiously. Not one of them had managed to land a hit, and for the first time they questioned everything they thought they knew about humans. The whispers grew louder with curiosity and tension, as everyone realized that this human was not just lucky or trained. He was something entirely different. He was humanity showing its hidden edge for the first time in the heart of the alien academy. The second trial came quickly, and this time the atmosphere was filled with tension. The alien instructors called it the Combat Gauntlet, designed to test a cadet's skill, speed, and endurance. In this trial, cadets had to navigate through a series of dynamic obstacles, including moving platforms, energy barriers, and aggressive drone-like sentinels. Each of these trials would be programmed to push cadets to their limits and beyond. The alien cadets suited up in their armored exoskeletons designed for speed and strength. Their weapons hummed with lethal energy as they prepared to prove themselves once again. The human cadet entered the arena without a hint of hesitation. His blindfold was still firmly in place. His posture was steady but relaxed, giving no sign of what was about to come. His movements were measured, his breath slow and even. In the far corners of the arena, the alien cadets sneered, muttering that there was no way someone could pass such a test. Blindfolded, the human simply nodded to the instructor, acknowledging the challenge but showing no sign of fear or doubt. The moment the trial began, the platform under his feet shifted. He could hear the hum of the energy fields ahead as they powered up. He could sense the rush of air as the drones above activated and began their programmed pursuit of him. The alien cadets surged forward, using their speed and tech to gain a head start. But as they moved, the human remained perfectly still. Not a single step was taken until the first drone passed overhead. His reflexes were so sharp that in that split second, he moved like lightning without hesitation. The first drone swooped down, targeting him with a high-speed laser shot. But the human did not move in a panicked rush. Instead, he twisted his body with fluid grace, avoiding the shot by mere inches. The drone did not stop to correct its course, but the human was already in motion, using the momentum from his dodge to leap off a nearby platform. He landed softly and continued to move in an unpredictable pattern. His senses were attuned to the smallest vibrations in the air, the heat signatures left behind by the drones, the sound of their motors whirring as they adjusted their flight paths. The alien cadets were not prepared for this. As they darted forward, using their advanced technology to dodge and strike, they were all too focused on their own paths to notice how the human moved. He was like a shadow gliding across the arena, reacting to every change in the environment, without the need for sight. The first energy barrier that was meant to block the path of any cadet was coming up fast. A heavy pulse of energy would usually cause most to hesitate or try to time the jump perfectly, but the human did not need to time it. He sensed the power surge and adjusted his course before it even hit. He slid under the barrier just as it activated, his body moving, with the kind of precision that made the other cadets stop for a moment and watch. They had never seen anyone move with this kind of ease or control. He was not just reacting to the obstacles, he was one step ahead, reading the flow of the arena before anyone else. Even the drone sentinels seemed to become aware of his presence and began to move in an attempt to trap him. But again, the human outwitted them, his every move deliberate and calculated. In moments of combat, the human did not use brute strength or flashy attacks, but instead used his surroundings to his advantage. He would deflect energy blasts off walls or redirect drones into one another, creating chaos among the pursuers. At one point, an alien cadet tried to ambush him from behind, aiming a strike at his neck with a stun baton. But the human, without turning his head, blocked the attack with a quick and effortless twist of his body. The alien's baton crashed into the floor as the human spun around and landed a precise blow that sent the cadet tumbling backward. The cadet stumbled, shocked by the sudden strike. The human's face was still serene, his expression calm yet focused. The other aliens were watching, their confidence faltering as one by one they began to fail to keep up with his flawless movements. What they did not know was that the human's ability was not just about reflexes or strength, but about something deeper. It was the ability to remain in perfect harmony with his environment, to read the smallest clues around him, and to respond before anything even happened. He did not rely on technology or complex devices like the others. Instead, he relied on his instincts, his mind, and a deep connection to the world around him. The trial ended with the human once again standing unscathed in the center of the arena. His calm demeanor had shattered the smugness of the alien cadets. They had expected to break him with their technology, to overwhelm him with their advanced weapons, but they had underestimated one thing: the heart of humanity, and the unshakable will that drove it. The human had completed the combat gauntlet with ease, and not a single alien cadet had been able to match his speed, his precision, or his sheer ability to adapt. The instructors were silent, their disbelief written across their faces as they began to understand just how dangerous this human was. The trials were supposed to prove the superiority of the alien races, yet it was the human who stood triumphant. And for the first time, The other cadets began to fear what the future held for them when the human cadets were fully unleashed. The mental trial was the one that everyone had been waiting for. In the heart of the academy, deep within a chamber designed to test the intellect and ingenuity of the cadets, the alien instructors called it the puzzle of the mind. And for many, it was a trial that separated the elite from the rest. The task was deceptively simple, or so the alien cadets thought. They were given a complex series of encrypted codes, intricate patterns, and impossible logic puzzles that required advanced understanding of alien technology and culture. In the first few minutes, the cadets dove into the challenges with fervor, their hands tapping on holographic interfaces, their minds working to solve the encoded symbols. But for the human, the trial was different. He was already seated at the table, his blindfold still firmly in place. His hands rested calmly on the surface of the console, not moving, not hurried, but completely at peace. Around him, the other cadets scrambled, looking frustrated as the complex codes seemed to elude them. The human, however, did not panic or rush through the codes like the others. Instead, he sat still, focusing not on the symbols in front of him, but on the space between them, on the energy that powered the holographic interfaces, the vibrations and slight shifts in the system's grid. He did not rely on sight, sound, or even memory for answers. His mind was in tune with the environment around him. The air seemed to hum as he absorbed the information that the other cadets missed. A soft click echoed through the chamber as the human's fingers gently brushed over one of the holographic keys. The alien cadets looked on in confusion as a new set of symbols appeared before the human. In that moment, something shifted. The encrypted patterns were no longer random to him. The human's mind worked, not like a machine, but like a finely tuned instrument, effortlessly connecting the pieces of the puzzle. His hand moved again, and another set of symbols appeared. The alien cadets, who had been staring at their consoles in frustration, now glanced nervously at the human's progress. The puzzle was not just a test of intelligence, it was a test of perception, of instinct. And it was in this that the human excelled. He did not analyze the patterns in the same way that the aliens did. He didn't need to break them down piece by piece. Instead, he saw the bigger picture, the connections between symbols that others could not even fathom. With each click of his fingers, the holographic screen seemed to bend and shift, revealing more of the puzzle. He could sense the underlying logic behind, the code like an unseen force guiding him forward. The alien cadets began to feel the pressure building as they saw the human inching closer to completing the task. They scrambled, trying to catch up, but their eyes flicked back to the human, who seemed to be getting faster with each passing second. It was as though he was becoming one with the puzzle, the logic flowing through him without effort and without hesitation. The instructors watched with astonished expressions as the human's screen filled with completed patterns. The final key flashed in front of him, and in one smooth motion, his fingers pressed down on it. The room fell silent, and for a long moment nothing happened. Then, with a soft hum, the puzzle's final encryption unraveled, and the screen displayed a complete set of codes. The human had solved the puzzle of the mind in less than half the time of the fastest alien cadet. The instructors exchanged looks of disbelief. A few of them had expected the human to struggle, but instead, he had breezed through it with a grace and ease that no one could explain. The alien cadets around him stood in stunned silence. Some were visibly shaken by how effortlessly he had cracked what had taken them hours to even begin understanding. The human simply stood up, his expression unchanged, and calmly walked away from the table. The alien cadets didn't know whether to feel anger or awe. But one thing was clear: they had underestimated the human again. The final trial of the day was about to begin, and it would combine everything they had learned so far. The human was about to face it blindfolded as well. The alien cadets eyed him warily, wondering if this time there would be a limit to his abilities. As the final test loomed, the instructors began to doubt themselves. How had a human with no technology or enhancements outperformed their best cadets in every trial? What was it that made him so unique, and what would happen if he succeeded in the final trial? The human's performance had shifted the entire dynamic of the academy. The alien cadets who had laughed at them before were now asking questions about their training, about their strategies. Some were even considering working with the human cadets for the first time. There was no longer any mockery in their voices, just quiet respect, and as the trials continued, one thing became abundantly clear. Humanity was no longer the underdog of the galaxy. The human success in the puzzle of the mind was just the beginning. Soon everyone would understand the true potential of the human spirit, and no one would ever again underestimate the power of their mind or their will to survive. The final trial had arrived, and it was the one that would push all the cadets to their breaking points. The arena, once used for mock combat and training exercises, had been transformed into a battlefield. The stage was set for the ultimate test, a combination of physical endurance, tactical brilliance, and combat prowess. The alien cadets, each wearing their high-tech exoskeletons and armed with advanced weaponry, stood poised and ready. The human cadet, as always, was blindfolded. His calm demeanor was unwavering as he entered the arena, not a single trace of hesitation in his movements. He didn't need to see to know what lay ahead. The arena was designed to be a labyrinth of dangers. Walls that shifted, platforms that moved, traps that activated without warning. It was a gauntlet meant to break the spirit and will of any cadet who dared face it. Most alien cadets had spent years preparing for this moment. Their technology and enhancements were meant to give them every possible advantage. Their reflexes were faster, their strength greater, their endurance superior, but they were not prepared for the human. The moment the trial began, the ground beneath their feet trembled. The walls of the arena shifted into motion as holographic projectiles fired at them, aimed to test their speed and agility. The aliens reacted instantly, jumping, dodging, and using their enhanced armor to absorb the impact. But the human did not flinch. He didn't even move for a second. His mind was focused, processing everything around him even though his eyes were covered. His ability to sense the movements of the arena and the changes in the environment was unparalleled. The first wave of projectiles came fast, but the human was already moving. The alien cadets who had taken the lead found themselves suddenly overwhelmed as the human's blindfolded figure darted across the arena, weaving between the incoming blasts with perfect precision. It was as though he could hear the trajectory of the projectiles before they were fired. His every step was calculated. His movements were nothing short of graceful, as if he were dancing through a storm of laser fire. The alien cadets tried to match his speed, but they were too slow. The drones that patrolled the arena circled above, firing down on any cadet who dared to stay in one spot for too long. The human was already on the move again. His footfalls were quiet but swift as he used the shifting platforms to his advantage. He leaped from one to the other, landing with ease, his body never faltering even when the platforms began to tremble under his weight. The drones moved in, targeting him with more intense blasts, but the human did not hesitate. He raised his arm in a fluid motion, deflecting a high-speed energy pulse with the flat of his hand and redirecting it back toward one of the drones. The drone exploded in a flash of light, its parts scattering into the air. The alien cadets who had been focused on avoiding the drones were now watching in shock, unable to understand how the human had performed such a feat with no visible effort. The trial was far from over. The arena had more tricks up its sleeve. The ground beneath them began to rumble, and a new series of traps activated. Energy barriers that would stun any cadet who touched them, shifting walls that would crush anything in their path. The alien cadets scrambled to avoid the traps, their exoskeletons helping them navigate through the danger. But the human, with his calm demeanor, was already a step ahead. His senses were tuned to the slightest changes in the air, the faintest vibrations in the ground. He was not just reacting to the traps, he was anticipating them. He dodged between the shifting walls, his movement so precise that the barriers missed him by mere inches. He slid under a low-hanging energy pulse just as it activated, rolling across the floor with the ease of someone who had done this 1,000 times before. The aliens, watching from the sidelines, felt a growing sense of fear and disbelief. This human cadet who had arrived with nothing but a blindfold was now dominating the trial. They were trained in advanced combat, tactical strategy, and high-tech equipment, but they had never seen anything like this. His ability to adapt and outmaneuver them was unlike anything they had ever faced in the distance. The final challenge of the arena appeared, a massive tower surrounded by a grid of deadly lasers. The human was not shaken. He knew what he had to do, and he moved toward it without hesitation. The alien cadets were too slow to catch up, still struggling to navigate the traps and obstacles. Meanwhile, the human was already scaling the tower, his movements as smooth as liquid. His hands found holds in the structure, his body responding to the shifting of the walls as if he had memorized the layout. The other cadets were too focused on their own struggles to notice until it was too late. The human reached the top of the tower in record time, his blindfolded face betraying no hint of effort. He had finished the trial. The alien instructors stood in stunned silence. The final trial was meant to break even the strongest of cadets, to test their limits, and push them beyond what they thought possible. But the human had completed it with ease, blindfolded with no technology to rely on, simply his mind, his body, and his willpower. The alien cadets, who had once mocked and underestimated the humans, now stood in awe. They had never seen anything like this before. They had expected to break him, they had expected him to falter, but instead, they had witnessed humanity's greatest strength, the ability to adapt, to learn, and to rise above every obstacle. The final trial had ended, but the real test was just beginning. For the human had already proven that when it came to survival and victory, no one could stand against the power of humanity's spirit. The human stood at the center of the arena, surrounded by alien cadets who had once considered themselves the best of the galaxy. Now they stood in stunned silence, unable to comprehend how someone so unassuming could rise to the top so effortlessly. Their doubts had been crushed, their pride shattered, and they couldn't help but wonder if they had underestimated humanity from the very beginning. The final trial had ended, but the tension in the air was thick, heavy with uncertainty. The instructors called for a brief pause, allowing the cadets to catch their breath and prepare for the final assessment. It was time to judge who truly deserved to claim victory, but it was clear the human had already surpassed the expectations of everyone present. The aliens had fought with all their strength, using their advanced technology and tactical superiority, but it had not been enough. In fact, it had only made their defeat more humiliating. The human had outsmarted them, outlasted them, and now he stood before them as a symbol of everything they had underestimated about humanity. The alien cadets who had once sneered and jeered at the humans now found themselves looking at him with a mixture of fear and admiration. They had expected to crush him under the weight of their advanced weaponry and tactics, but instead, he had walked through every trial without a scratch. And now, he was about to face the final test, the one that would decide whether he was truly worthy of their respect. The challenge was simple in theory, but brutal in execution. The human cadet would be placed in the center of a simulated battlefield, surrounded by enemies from every corner of the galaxy. The objective was to survive, to eliminate the enemy forces, and to hold out until the end of the simulation. The catch, however, was that the simulation would be unlike any other the cadets had faced before. It would be chaotic, fast-paced, and relentless. The human's heart beat steadily, his mind already in sync with the arena. He had already anticipated the outcome of the trial before it had even started. He knew the layout, he knew the tactics, and he knew how to survive in the most hostile environments. What the alien cadets didn't realize was that the human wasn't just preparing to survive, he was preparing to win. The trial began with a loud roar as the walls of the arena shifted, revealing the first wave of enemies. Alien soldiers with advanced armor, weapons, and technology emerged from the shadows, ready to overwhelm the human. The alien cadets had been trained to face enemies like these, and they had expected to encounter similar threats in the final test. But they had not expected the human to react the way he did. As the first group of soldiers advanced, the human stood motionless for a moment, assessing the situation. Then, without a word, he moved. His body was a blur, a streak of lightning that cut through the battlefield with speed and precision that no one could match. His hands were a blur of movement, grabbing weapons, using them against the enemy, and taking down soldiers before they even realized what was happening. The alien cadets tried to keep up, but they were no match for the humans. Fluid movements and instinctive understanding of the battlefield. He was everywhere at once, striking from unexpected angles, anticipating every move his enemies made. The first wave of soldiers was eliminated in seconds, and the human moved on to the next. His blindfold remained firmly in place, but his actions were so precise that it was as if he could see every move the enemy made. The alien cadets watched in awe as the human dodged blasts, disarmed opponents, and moved through the battlefield with an ease that defied all logic. But it wasn't just his reflexes or his ability to fight that set him apart. It was his mind, the way he could think 3 steps ahead, predicting the enemy's moves before they even made them. As the second wave of soldiers arrived, the human had already set traps using the environment to his advantage. He led the enemies into narrow corridors where they were easy targets and used their own weapons against them. The cadets who had once scoffed at him now watched in silence, unable to comprehend how one human could dismantle an entire force so effortlessly. His movements were so precise, so calculated, that it seemed as if he was controlling the battlefield with his mind. The instructors, too, were left speechless. They had designed this simulation to be the ultimate test, a challenge that would break even the strongest cadets. But the human had not only survived, it was as if he had become one with the battlefield, mastering it with a skill that no alien species could match. The third wave of enemies arrived, and this time they were armed with more advanced technology, outfitted with shields and energy-based weapons that could kill with a single strike. But the human was not intimidated. He didn't hesitate, didn't falter. He flowed through the battlefield like water, striking with precision, never allowing his enemies to get close. His hands moved like lightning, his body twisting and turning in perfect synchronization with the environment. The cadets, who had been struggling to keep up, were now watching in stunned silence as the human dismantled the third wave with the same ease he had demonstrated in the previous trials. It was clear now that the human was no longer just a cadet. He was a force to be reckoned with. The final wave of enemies approached, and it was unlike anything the human had faced before. A massive alien warship descended from above, and its massive guns began firing at the human, determined to end his run. The battlefield erupted in chaos, but the human did not retreat. Instead, he ran toward the warship, his body moving with a purpose that no one could understand. The alien cadets shouted in panic, but it was too late. The human leaped into the air, using the surrounding environment to propel himself toward the warship, and in one fluid motion, he struck, taking down the warship's main weapon system in a single blow. The warship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, and the arena fell silent. The human stood at the center of the chaos, unharmed and victorious. The alien cadets, the instructors, and even the most battle-hardened warriors watched in awe. They had never seen anything like it, and they knew without a doubt that they had just witnessed humanity's true potential. The arena fell into an eerie silence after the humans' final victory. The alien cadets stood frozen, their faces a mixture of awe and disbelief. The instructors, who had spent years designing trials meant to challenge the greatest minds and warriors of the galaxy, now found themselves questioning everything they thought they knew about strength, skill, and what it meant to be the best. For a moment no one dared speak, as if afraid to break the spell that the human had cast over them. The human cadet, however, remained calm. His blindfolded face showed no sign of arrogance or triumph. He simply stood there, his chest rising and falling steadily, his mind already focusing on the next challenge. The cadets around him were still trying to process what had just happened. How could one human, armed with nothing but his mind and his body, have completed every trial with such ease? How had he been able to take down entire armies, navigate impossible puzzles, and survive deadly environments when it seemed like the odds were stacked so high against him? For the alien cadets, the realization was dawning slowly but surely. They understood that they were no longer the apex species in the galaxy. There was something about humanity that they had missed, something powerful, something unstoppable. Even the instructors who had witnessed countless trials were left speechless. Their eyes flicked back and forth between the human and their own cadets, each of them feeling a growing sense of unease. The human had broken through every expectation, dismantling their entire system of testing with grace, precision, and an unmatched will to survive. The human was not just a survivor. He was a force of nature, someone who had faced overwhelming odds and triumphed when others would have faltered. It was then that the chief instructor, a towering alien with a face covered in intricate tattoos, stepped forward. He gazed at the human with a look of deep respect, though it was clear that he was also grappling with the fact that humanity had outperformed every alien species present. He bowed his head slightly in acknowledgement, a gesture that no one had ever expected. From him it was a rare sign of respect, one that was usually reserved for only the most legendary warriors and leaders in the galaxy. The human, still blindfolded, nodded in return but said nothing. His silence spoke volumes, though, and it echoed through the arena like a challenge to all who witnessed it. The cadets, who had been so sure of their superiority, now realized that their greatest test was not the arena or the challenges they faced. It was the human standing before them, who had shown them what true strength was, not in the weapons they carried, not in the technology they wielded, but in the raw power of the human spirit. The cadets began to shift uneasily, some walking away in silence, others muttering to one another, their pride bruised, but their minds open to the idea that humanity might be more than they had ever imagined. The chief instructor raised his hand to signal for quiet. The trial was over, but the results were clear. Humanity had won, and it was time for a reckoning. The human had surpassed every expectation and proven that when it came to survival, adaptability, and the ability to overcome impossible odds, no one was stronger. The instructor turned to face the other cadets and said in a voice that rang with authority, "Today, you have witnessed something extraordinary. A human has outperformed every alien species here, and you will remember this day for the rest of your lives. He's a testament to the resilience and unbreakable will of humanity. And from this day forward, the galaxy will look at humans not as weak or inferior, but as equals, and perhaps even something more." It was a statement that no one could ignore, a challenge that would reverberate across the academy and beyond. The alien cadets, still processing the weight of the words, could do nothing but stare at the human who had shown them what true greatness was. As the cadets slowly made their way out of the arena, the human stood alone, calm and composed. His blindfold was the only thing that remained, unchanged, symbolizing his unwavering focus and clarity. Even in victory, he did not let his guard down, did not let his emotions rule him. He had won the respect of the galaxy, but he had no need to boast or make a spectacle of it. His actions had spoken for themselves. The instructors took a moment to confer among themselves, clearly impressed but still struggling to reconcile the idea that a single human had done what no alien had ever accomplished. The chief instructor turned to the human and, in a rare moment of respect, offered a hand. The human, still calm, accepted the gesture with a brief nod. The human's victory was not just a victory for one person, it was a victory for all of humanity. It was a declaration that no one, no matter how powerful or advanced, could underestimate the strength of the human spirit. The story of this day would be told for generations across the galaxy. A new chapter had been written in the annals of history, and it was written by humanity's greatest strength. The human's final words were simple, yet they resonated with the power of an entire species. They had laughed at humanity. They had underestimated humanity. But now, humanity had shown them who they really were, and they would never forget. The academy, once filled with whispers of mockery and underestimation, was now silent, a place of reverence for humanity. The alien cadets who had once laughed and scoffed at the human presence now stood in awe. Every one of them had witnessed the impossible. Every doubt they held about humans had been crushed with the final trials. But the human cadet himself showed no signs of celebration. He stood at the center of the arena, his blindfold still firmly in place, his mind already focused on the next challenge, the next battle, the next victory. To him, this was not an end. It was just another step toward proving humanity's place in the galaxy. The chief instructor, who had been a stalwart leader and a symbol of alien superiority, stood before the human cadet once more. He had watched the trials unfold with increasing amazement and a growing sense of respect. The moment he had bowed his head, he had known the implications. He had known that the galaxy, the very way it had viewed humanity, was about to change forever. "You have surpassed all of us," the instructor said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of someone who had seen and experienced much, but had never witnessed anything like this. "You are a living testament to the strength of your species, your will, your mind. I never thought I'd see the day when a human would be considered the equal of our best warriors." The human nodded, his face impassive, as if the words meant nothing to him. He was not here for recognition or praise. He was here to prove something, not to the aliens, but to humanity itself. He had already known what he was capable of, what he had just done in the arena, what he had accomplished against overwhelming odds was not an isolated event. It was a reflection of humanity's potential, a potential that had been suppressed, ignored, and underestimated for far too long. The other cadets, now silent, slowly gathered around the human. They had seen the way he had moved through the trials, the way he had adapted and overcome. Some still looked at him with envy, others with fear, but none could deny the undeniable truth that was now staring them in the face. Humanity was no longer the underdog of the galaxy. The final battle had not only proven the human superiority, it had shifted the very fabric of the Academy's ideals. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The chief instructor, after a long pause, turned toward the assembled cadets. "From this day forward," he said, "the galaxy will remember this moment. They will remember the human cadet who conquered every trial, defeated every challenge, and proved that humanity is a force to be reckoned with. You will leave this place not as cadets, but as true warriors, capable of accomplishing the impossible." The human cadet remained silent, still processing the instructor's words. He had completed the trials, but his journey was far from over. The respect he had earned in the Academy would now follow him wherever he went. The trials had been a test of strength, intelligence, and endurance, but there was something more he had proven. The galaxy, which had once thought of humans as weak and primitive, now saw them for what they truly were: survivors, warriors, and innovators. They had laughed at humanity, believed them to be nothing more than an afterthought in the grand scheme of the universe. But now, humanity had shown that they were the ones who would shape the future. One by one, the alien cadets approached the human, offering silent nods of respect. Some even placed their hands over their hearts, a traditional gesture of honor in their cultures. The human accepted their gestures calmly, but inside he knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was wide and filled with unknown dangers and challenges. His victory in the trials had proven one thing: humanity was ready. They were ready to face whatever came next, and they would do it together. The human cadet turned and faced the horizon, where the vast expanse of space stretched before him. The stars seemed to shine brighter now, as if acknowledging humanity's place among them. He took a deep breath and removed his blindfold, allowing the full weight of the moment to settle in. He was no longer just a cadet, no longer just a symbol of human potential. He was a representative of humanity's future, of everything they had yet to achieve. He smiled faintly, not out of pride, but out of the quiet satisfaction that came with knowing that the galaxy had underestimated humanity no more. As he walked toward the exit of the arena, the alien cadets parted to let him pass, their eyes following him, filled with a mixture of admiration and fear. The galaxy was changing, and humanity had just shown the universe that they were not only a force to be reckoned with, they were the future. The human cadet did not look back. He didn't need to. He had already won. The arena stood silent, AI, place where the echoes of the humans' triumph reverberated through every corner. The alien cadets who had once ridiculed humanity now stood in awe, their respect earned not by words but by the sheer power of action. The human cadet, though, was not one to bask in glory, not one to seek accolades or praise. He had proven what needed to be proven. He had faced the trials of the academy and shattered every expectation laid before him. With each step he took, a new sense of purpose ignited in him. He had not fought for recognition or honor, but to show the galaxy that humanity was far more than anyone had ever realized. What had once been dismissed as weakness had now become the symbol of strength. What had been laughed at as primitive was now the source of respect and fear. The galaxy had underestimated humanity at its own peril, and now the universe would never forget the name of the human who had single-handedly changed everything, the chief instructor, who had watched the humans' every move with a mix of disbelief and admiration, now bowed his head to him. In that single gesture, a galaxy of pride and arrogance was shattered. The instructor's voice rang out, resonating through the academy, carrying a weight it had never before held. The trials have ended, but the legacy of humanity begins today. The human cadet did not answer with words. He did not need to. His actions had spoken for him. He had proven that humanity was no longer a forgotten species to be ignored, but a force to be reckoned with. The alien cadets, once so sure of their superiority, now looked at the human with newfound respect and fear. They had witnessed his strength, his brilliance, and his will to survive, and they knew deep down that they would never underestimate humanity again. The galaxy was vast, and countless challenges awaited. But now, humanity stood poised to face them, to take its place among the stars, not as underdogs but as equals ready to shape the future. The human cadet, blindfolded but not beaten, had shown them that the strength of humanity lay not in their weapons or technology, but in their unbreakable spirit and relentless drive to overcome the impossible. As the human walked out of the arena, his path clear ahead of him, the voices of the cadets, the instructors, and the entire academy began to fade into the background. He had already won, and the galaxy had already taken notice. The human's victory was more than just personal. It was a victory for every human who had ever been doubted, for every person who had been told they weren't enough, for every soul that had ever been dismissed as weak. This victory was a message humanity was here and they would not be silenced or overlooked again. From this day forward, the galaxy would remember humanity not as a forgotten species, but as the ones who had proven that strength came in many forms, and sometimes it came from the most unexpected of places. And so, the human's journey continued. But this time, the universe would know that they were no longer the prey. They were the predators, and they had just claimed their rightful place at the top of the food chain. The end